Somewhere about 10 or 10:30 in the morning, our senior pastor called me into his office and said, I've just received a call from the Boulder County Sheriff, and he's requested that we become an evacuation center.
This year has been very difficult for the Colorado Springs region. The price that our region has paid has been very high in disasters. All of Colorado was hit by catastrophic flooding.
The raining started on September 11th, and it was an evening of rain. It rained like it doesn't typically rain.
We received a year's worth of rain in about 4 days.
The rain sounded like a hurricane, and that was when we were getting basically about 6 inches of rain in probably about 10 hours. And it was just an incredibly hard rain.
We've lost other lives from those disasters as well. It has been a hard year for us. 70% of all of the disaster aid that's provided to disaster survivors comes from voluntary sources. It does not come from government. Most of the aid in disasters comes from people helping each other.
And so they were asking if we could open and potentially take the entire town of Lyons here in our facility to shelter them. Thursday morning, September 12th, was a normal morning. It started out very typical around here. People coming into the office, getting their cup of coffee, settling in their desks, making phone calls. I had a couple meetings that morning, and somewhere about 10 or 10:30 in the morning, our senior pastor called me into his office and said, I've just received a call from the Boulder County Sheriff, and he's requested that we become an evacuation center. He said it looks like they may need to evacuate the entire town of Lyons, Colorado, and they would like to bring those folks here. There's a major issue. Those folks in the middle of the night had already been evacuated to another shelter, but they felt like that shelter wasn't going to be safe any longer, and so they were asking if we could open and potentially take the entire town of Lyons here in our facility to shelter them.
I was here late on the 11th with our senior pastor here and another gal that was here on staff. We were here late on that Wednesday night because we have rehearsals, and I had coordinated volunteers for that weekend for the rehearsals. And our senior pastor walked by and said, hey, don't leave. It looks like we're going to get some evacuees from Lyons.
The raining started on September 11th, and it was an evening of rain. It rained like it doesn't typically rain, even here, and it was raining even harder in the mountains. So we just saw incredible rain. One of our people who's here, part of our church, was saying that they're from the East Coast, and they said the rain sounded like a hurricane that they remember on the East Coast. And it just rained in the middle of the night, woke them up and said, wow, what is the deal with all this rain? And that was when we were getting basically about 6 inches of rain in probably about 10 hours. And it was just an incredibly hard rain.
All of Colorado was hit by catastrophic flooding. We received a year's worth of rain in about 4 days. And we've lost other lives from those disasters as well. It has been a hard year for us.
We've never been a shelter before, never had a request like that. We honestly had never done any long-term planning or crisis planning regarding using our facility as a shelter. We had done some trips, and one of the things that we had done a lot of was some training with FEMA and other entities when we had served in the Joplin tornado aftermath, and also in some of the Katrina. It's always been something big that our church has tried to send trips, folks who want to go and help. So we had a tornado that happened here in Windsor, Colorado, and that's been several years ago. But one of the things we learned was sort of the response to that. And so then we've helped to train others in situations like Joplin and also in Katrina. So we had some knowledge and understanding of crises and how to manage those crises. But we had never ever planned to use our facility as a shelter or ever done anything like that in the time that we've had this facility in over 20 years.
In our first thoughts, it's just like, how are we gonna take care of them? How are they gonna sleep? What are they gonna eat? That kind of stuff. That's when we sent out the Facebook, Twitter, that kind of stuff. Within 6 hours, we had so much stuff that we had to send another email out, and Facebook is saying stop bringing stuff, because our congregation and the people in the community responded so quickly that we couldn't even take the stuff anymore, so we had to stop them. So that was our initial, is how are we going to take care of these people? And our people just stood up and helped us do that.
One of the wonderful things about our community here in Colorado, and in the Pikes Peak region in particular, we have a very strong volunteer tradition in our area. People immediately look to each other for solutions. When something needs to be done, they stand up and organize to do it. Local government has a very important role to play in disaster response, but most of the help that is provided to disaster survivors is provided by their neighbors, not by government.
Every day we had so many people wanting to help. We didn't have enough jobs for them to do. And not only our congregation, our membership, our staff, but people in the community, people that just the businesses in town that reached out, and we'd have restaurants that would say, "Out, we'll bring food, bring food, whatever you need." We had to just stop because we couldn't bring in all the stuff that they wanted to give us.
You know, as a staff, we took a lot of the lead roles in doing much of the evacuation center work, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without the volunteers. It would have been impossible to complete that kind of task. We needed to run it 24/7. So we needed people staffed in all those positions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We ended up running into shifts where we had night crews, people who would be able to help on nurses, trained and skilled nurses, people who could provide meals, people who could just provide safety to make sure that things were not going in the wrong direction, and monitoring the situation. We had over 3,000 hours of volunteer hours during those 9 days. It was amazing to watch the number of people. We had 900 people sign up to be volunteers on our web form that we created, and it was incredible to watch those individuals come in. We had a check-in process that we created, quickly set that up where they could then sign up for something as they came. And it was one where not everybody got matched up perfectly, but many got matched up to an area where they could be a part of helping people. And that was really the care. It was that desire to want to help their community, to help their neighbors. And we talk here all the time at LifeBridge about that we are called to love God and to love our neighbors. And that's what Jesus said. Those two things were really important to him. And so for us, that was easy for us to help people love their neighbors. And that's the role we wanted to play.
All companies, on command 6, we are leaving the area. I repeat, our fallback position is Jamaica Park. We are leaving the area.
This year has been very difficult for the Colorado Springs region. We have endured 2 catastrophic wildfires within 1 year. In the first of those fires, we lost 347 homes in 1 day. And in the fire recently in my community of Black Forest, we lost about 486 homes over a period of about 2 days.
Well, on June 11th, I couldn't believe it was happening again, because the year before we had had the Waldo Canyon fire, so I was just dumbstruck that we had it 2 years in a row.
Well, you have to remember the community was just coming up on the 1-year anniversary of a very devastating fire from the summer before. Right around June 19th, June 20th, we had the start of the Waldo Canyon fire, which took 2 lives, and over 300 homes were burned and people displaced. So we're just on the heels of that. We're in a drought condition again. And a call comes in that there's smoke, and neighbors are starting to talk about seeing fire in the Black Forest area.
Within 2 days, after the first day, I sent an email to Monty Gore, who's the Deputy County Administrator. Call me if you need me. and on the third day he did. And the Disaster Assistance Center was up and running almost immediately because unfortunately we had practice from the previous year. And so but that was a benefit because we were able to set up so much quicker and get in there and start helping people.
The needs we were facing on June 11th was just getting out safely. The fire blew up so fast that many of us got reverse 911 calls shortly after the fire started. When the wind shifted, speaking for myself, we had the sheriff on our door ordering us out probably about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just getting everything that was important, including your pets, your valuables, was the need that we needed at that time.
That day started out, actually for me it started the day before. I was at home and I looked at what the forecasted weather was going to be like for the next day and decided that it was going to be a day that I needed to be down there just in case. And during the course of the day it was a pretty normal routine. However, come early afternoon, our situation started to change weather-wise. And that is when the fire first broke out, and I was actually the first officer out the door with one other person on our wildland unit and responded all the way down to the scene and was actually the first one to start engaging the fire.
In the afternoon of June 11th, a little bit after 1 o'clock, approximately to the west of us here is where the fire actually originated. The weather was warm that day. We've been in a drought for over 10 or 12 years here in El Paso County.
Actually, it started as soon as we left the station. As soon as we turned onto the first road heading out, I could see a large smoke plume off in the distance and knew that we already had a working fire.
This fire was much bigger than what was initially reported. My biggest concern is, unlike Waldo Canyon, there were homes in the immediate area. This wasn't like Waldo where it burned 3 or 4 days in just the national forest. I mean, there were homes right where that plume of smoke was.
As the fire began to spread, this is one of the hardest hit areas as it spread through this area. And if you look here, over here, you'll see that a lot of this is deep dark and is completely burnt. And if you look at the ground, it's also a different color as well. And what that has done is the fire burned so hot and so long that the ground has become hydrophobic.
As I proceeded, I started to actually encounter fire activity. And as I approached the second residence on this particular street, it was already making a dangerous, what we call a run, up the hill and threatening this structure and actually making an attempt to try and burn it down.
So the first thought is, number one, we need to get more resources to engage the fire. We need the aerial support, the tankers to come in and drop, but most importantly is to start evacuations.
And all of the agencies in the Colorado Springs and El Paso County area just came together so quickly to embrace everyone involved in the fire and to help make them whole again.
Is like any other disaster or emergency where you're going to have congestion and it takes people to start moving that traffic, and that's where we were fortunate. We were able to call on our volunteers, both for our Citizens Patrol, which are not fully certified law enforcement professionals, as well as our reserve unit, which are volunteers that have law enforcement authority and power.
Volunteers were essential to both the emergency response during these disasters and to the recovery after these disasters. Volunteers made sure that our first responders, our firefighters and police officers, were fed and housed and taken care of. Volunteers sheltered people who were evacuated and displaced. Volunteers raised money to help in any number of ways, and that effort is still going on. It's commonly described, and it's true, that about 70% of all of the disaster aid that's provided to disaster survivors comes from voluntary sources and companies and what we call the private sector. It does not come from government. Most of the aid in disasters comes from people helping each other.
What you say is true, that During Katrina, for example, we saw that the local government, the state government, and the federal government were challenged to address the enormity of the issues that we faced on the ground. And philanthropy, especially including this foundation, was able to step in and provide some of the support and some of the services that the local, state, and federal governments couldn't provide.
Well, there's all kinds of different ways to volunteer for your community, whether that's providing a skill set that you have, assisting building homes for the needy, or in my particular situation, I have a skill set in firefighting that I do as a profession, but I choose to also help my community where I live and provide those services for free.
And I will tell you that as a volunteer myself in many areas and as a paid firefighter for over 33 years, our volunteers are extremely important to our community. They're community members who care about their community, and they come out here and they put their lives on the line to fight fire within their district. So there are people who live here that take care of those who live here. So the way I look at that, it's good people doing good things for good people. So.
An important thing to understand is that whatever your talent is, you can use it effectively and productively as a volunteer. Right now in my community of Black Forest, as we recover from a catastrophic fire, we need skills of all types. We need people who are good at office skills. We need people who are good at doing heavy work with chainsaws and tools to clear away burned trees. We need people who understand how to talk to people who are in crisis emotionally. We need people who are good at cooking and serving food. Anything that you can do, you can find a way to use it to serve your community either in times of peace or in times of trouble.
We've built 74 houses in this area and tithed through your giving and your work to build another 116 houses in South America and Guatemala.
Throughout the U.S., Habitat for Humanity will partner with local organizations, businesses, faith organizations, and build homes in communities where people might not be able to afford to actually own their home. We're working with families for whom decent housing is not readily available. It's too expensive. They're living often in unsafe communities, and so we build homes and offer them at 0% mortgages so that they can afford to actually own a home where they might not normally get this opportunity.
1, 2, 3.
As a volunteer, I got started in September of 2012. I had been helping a Habitat home being built in Boulder, and we'd finished that project and moved the crew over here to this project.
Well, how I got involved was actually with a friend of mine through a local church, which is one of the sponsors of this particular build, and we did it one Saturday, and one Saturday turned into many others, and it's just a great, I guess a great feeling of being either up on the roof or on scaffolding and helping all the families that are here too.
Well, we have 4 families who have put over 250 hours of sweat equity into helping to build their homes and their neighbors' homes. And we completed the project a couple of months ago, and we are celebrating with them. We're dedicating the homes. We are blessing the homes, and basically just going in to thank our sponsors and our donors. We have a number of faith organizations and businesses who've contributed significant amounts of money to helping to make these homes possible.
Well, it's nice to see them so excited about, and they have to invest in many hours into their own homes, and it's just a good feeling that when you see their faces light up, and you can just hear it in their voice how happy and satisfied and lucky they feel, and it's just good to be part of that.
Often people look at the big picture and say, there's so much to be done, I can't make a difference. But if everyone does a small piece, you'll be surprised at how much you can accomplish. The key is to band together, work together, find other like-minded people, people who are interested in the same things you do, form a group, and get to work. And you'll discover very rapidly you've gotten a lot more accomplished than you think you could.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How's it going? What are we making this morning? Stuffing, getting ready for Thanksgiving. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and volunteering today. Well, across Bridge House, we have a variety of different programs. Every day we see over 100 people at our location in downtown Boulder, where we provide day resources and meals. We have our community table kitchen program where we cook all of our meals, and here we oversee the production of 66,000 meals a year. The way we produce those meals is we have a team that includes some staff members, volunteers, and members of our job training program called Ready to Work. And every morning the team gets together. We have food donated by the local food bank, where we then figure out what we can cook for the day, and then the team works together. The volunteers are a very important part of our operation. Our trainees from our Ready to Work program are all homeless clients who are helping, getting paid to work in the kitchen to learn culinary arts skills so they can get back in the workforce. And our team comes together under the leadership of our executive chef, John Trejo, provide a healthy, hearty, nutritious meal to our homeless clients who really do not have any other access to food.
Come on over here, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, which is a holiday here that we celebrate every year. A lot of preparation, a lot of items, a lot of food. So we typically start with what takes the longest and work back, right? So that the day before, the day of, we're doing last minute stuff. So today we're cooking cranberry sauce today. We've also got, while we're setting up to do this dinner, we're also doing breakfast, lunch, dinner for our clients that we got to serve today. So we're going to do a beef stir fry here that's got beef and vegetables and brown rice. And then tonight they're going to get kind of a curry chicken with apples and potatoes and mushrooms and over white rice. And we always do something vegetarian. So we're going to do a vegetarian black bean chili. So it's kind of a normal thing.
DC Central Kitchen is based on a very simple premise, and that is waste is wrong. That waste could be food, it could be productive minds, healthy bodies, or kitchens that aren't being used. So the idea is to take things that are being thrown away, again, food, minds, kitchens that aren't being used, bring them to a central location, put those pieces in a different kind of way, and with that create change. What's really important to understand is the food that we use is perfectly good food. It's not bad, it's not rotten, that for some reason are not going to make it into the mainstream food system. So they might be too big or too small or just a little funny looking, geometrically or aesthetically challenged, but perfectly good food that was just going to go to rot in the compost pile because it doesn't fit in the right box or in the right truck or in the right bin at the grocery store. So all good food, it just doesn't fit what we think food is supposed to look like. So we've been able to begin a whole new economy, really, with local farmers so they can get paid for a lot of their product they wouldn't get otherwise paid for. We get better food, healthier food for less money, and put that into our meals and throughout the community.
Bridge House, across all of our programs, especially our meal program here at Community Table Kitchen, sees about 500 volunteers a year. Boulder, Colorado is a very community-oriented town. We have a lot of people who want to volunteer, and we do not have any problem finding volunteers. In our meal program, we really have two different kinds of volunteer jobs. We have a crew that comes and actually cooks the food, and then we have volunteers who actually serve the food at our dinner program.
We've got prep going on all around you. So you've got potatoes for tonight's dinner working over here. We've got things cooking over here. And we've got two of our volunteers over here cutting up bread, getting ready for Thanksgiving. This will be for what they call stuffing, right? John is one of our volunteers. Amy's one of our star volunteers. Both very good in the program, so we're very fortunate to have them here. They know what they're doing. They've done this before. It's really makes my job easy.
I started when someone from the Bridge House, Scott Medina, came to my church and did a little talk about what the Bridge House was doing, how the community table was working, and that they cooked 2 times a week. And I thought, oh, I really like to cook. I think I'll go help. And so I started about 1.5 years ago down at the little kitchen that we used to cook in the bottom of a church, and just absolutely loved it. I cook a lot at home anyway, but this was so fun. And the camaraderie, and I like talking to people, and just meeting some of the ready-to-work folks and some of the other volunteers who some I knew, some I didn't know.
Over the course of the year, we have about 15,000 volunteers that'll come in here and work with us on a daily basis. And while that work is very, very important, we need their hands to help us chop vegetables and cut fruit and do all sorts of different things that we do, but really we're interested in their minds and their hearts. We want people to come in and expose them to what we do. And people come in here from all around the country and all around the world. And we want them to leave saying, man, that was incredible. I've never cut so many potatoes in my life. But I had this amazing conversation about food or music or movies or politics with a guy who was a crack addict and spent 15 years of their life in prison. Bringing people together who otherwise wouldn't be together is something that's really important for DC Central Kitchen. So the idea of bringing 15,000 volunteers from all around the country and the world together to create what we call the calculated epiphany, to put people who otherwise wouldn't be working together, wouldn't be standing around the same table, wouldn't be talking, but to bring them together to say, we all have something of value to teach each other and to learn from each other.
Let's walk this way. I got to stir my cranberries. So, cooking is one of these things where, we learn from everybody. I learn from these guys. They learn from me. It's a give and take. And that's what makes it a really good profession to be in. Because as long as there's food to eat and food to cook, you'll never run out of options. You'll never run out of things to do.
It's pretty simple to say that without the volunteers, we couldn't do what we do every single day. We absolutely need the volunteers to help us produce these meals, to work with our students. But really what we're after with our volunteers is for them to come in and not just think about what they can do with their hands, but to start thinking differently about assumptions they've made in their lives, about stereotypes we have, about preconceived notions, about what value people, not only food, but people have in our community. And this is what the kitchen is about, and this is why the volunteers are so important, for them to come in, not only to help us make these meals, but to experience what happens here, and this idea of seeing people change their lives, of seeing people who again, were discarded by society, and say, man, that person is really doing some incredible stuff. I want to learn more about that.
I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've cooked for celebrities, politicians. I've cooked for a lot of people. I'm able to give back in this program. I'm able to teach, which I love teaching. And it's my responsibility, if I'm going to be in this field, that I have to do my part in training the next group of chefs that want to come through this program. So You know, when I got started in this business, cooking, somebody took the time out to teach me. So I owe that to these guys. I'm taking time out to teach them.
So here at Bridge House and through our Community Table Kitchen program, one of our major goals is to provide job opportunities to people who have been homeless so that they can get back on their feet through employment and be able to earn money and be able to afford housing again. We have a program that has 12 different positions across our organization and have 4 positions here at the kitchen. We have trainees who have a variety of different backgrounds, one of which is Billy Joe. She came to us in July and is an incredibly hard worker. She's gone through a lot in terms of her own history and became homeless about a year ago.
Billy Joe was the very first ready-to-work employee that we had coming through the program. Very first to finish, very first to graduate. There from the beginning, right? She's been doing it for a long time. So she's seen it from the time it started until now and where we've ended up and what we want to do and what we want to continue doing. We're going to miss her when she moves on. We hope she doesn't move on.
I told you, I'm not leaving you.
But she'll come back. She'll come back, she'll volunteer, and that's how it works. They all come back to spend some time, you know? They'll do.
It's a great program. I started out first with the the supplemental sanitation crew. And what they do is they walk around and they clean the parks and all the tourist areas and help the city with maintenance on the parking garages. And although I had fun with that, I was really glad to come back to what I love, which is food, and come to the kitchen. And since then, I've really been able to flourish and have made some great connections with the food world here in Boulder. And so I'm just waiting for the right job. My resume is out there, and I know that it's coming, you know.
We prepare and deliver 5,000 meals a day. We could do 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 meals a day. People would still be hungry. Okay, food will not end hunger. We will never, ever, ever feed our way out of hunger. But if we can put people in a position to break this incredibly destructive and generational cycle that we see in America of addiction, of violence, of incarceration, of hunger, homelessness, and ultimately poverty, if we can put people in a position to break that cycle, then we're going to be making some progress. So that's what the kitchen is all about. You know, that's what the idea of training people while we're using this food, this incredible bounty of food that otherwise would be thrown away. You preparing it for good purposes, but training men and women to take that skill and go create a life for themselves on their own. That's ultimately what's at the heart of DC Central Kitchen.
I'll tell you, I do, you know, we take lunch, we make the lunch here, we make all the food here, then we transport the food. So we'll go to the Bridge House, right, and where we have a lot of the people waiting for lunch, right? And so they're waiting for me. I'm bringing them hot food, you know, especially like on a cold day, bringing them hot food. And they're so appreciative. You know, when they tell you thank you, they mean it. They mean it because this could be their one meal all day.
Volunteering to me is not only a way of giving back to the community. I've been very fortunate. I've grown up in safe neighborhoods with a great family, gone to good schools. But it's also a way of ensuring a better community for the future. Like everything that happens at the kitchen, volunteering is another way of investing in the future of our community. So while you can donate money to a nonprofit, you can also donate time or talent. So when we talk about things, we talk about time, talent, and treasure. And treasure is a wonderful thing. But time and talent are very, very personal. And this is what we want from people We want them to make the kitchen part of their experience, part of their experience, their lives in our communities. And to take it here, to experience here, and then maybe go back home to Philadelphia or New York or Baltimore or California, anywhere, and say, we want one of these in our community. We want to see the kind of power for change that this vehicle is. We want that in our community, and volunteering is the best way to see, feel, and understand that.
The volunteers, it's a huge part of our daily work, actually. We get a lot of volunteers here at the zoo. And when they first start off, they actually take a little tour around the zoo and they kind of pick what section they want to work in. So they come to us after choosing us, and then we meet them, and then we'll take them around and kind of slowly show them what they're going to be doing. We'll start off with basic stuff, basic cleaning, cleaning glass, scrubbing grounds, picking up trash, just everyday little things that we need to take care of throughout the day. And then as they stay here and we become friendly with them and trust them, then they'll slowly build up, and of course they'll actually do a lot with the animals, cleaning up after them, and then of course feedings and talking with the visitors here and acting as liaisons between the animals and the visitors.
So with our adult volunteers, they actually come once a week. They do a 3-hour class and they learn about all the different sections in the zoo. So we give them a little bit of the history of Audubon, the history of zoos, and really get them to understand, why it's important in what we do, conservation and education, and obviously taking care of the animals as well. And so they will get a chance to go and meet with the keepers in the different areas, learn a little bit about that specific section, the animals that they take care of, and the keepers will then try to recruit those volunteers and get them excited about choosing to volunteer in that section. With our youth volunteers, it's a little bit different. We actually do 4 weeks of training, and they come in this summer. We teach them everything they need to know, and then they'll get started coming on the weekends during the school year.
I'm a volunteer at Hoofstock in Audubon Zoo. I've been doing this for about 1.5 years now. I moved to New Orleans from New York State when I retired about 3 years ago. And when I was working, I never really had time to volunteer. I was too busy. There just wasn't enough time to do anything. And I also lived in a small town, so there wasn't like a lot of different things that I could do. So having moved here, the realtor that sold me my house, actually, her son is a junior keeper here. And I love animals. I've made several trips to Africa and worked hands-on with elephants and so on. So for me to come and volunteer here at the zoo was a natural. I mean, and I was so thrilled that I could actually do that. So loving New Orleans also, as I do, I wanted to give something back. And I feel like volunteering is exactly that. I have time to give. And we all have something to give, so that's it. It keeps me humble. I enjoy cleaning for not for the elephants, but for the rhinos. I enjoy helping the keepers because their job is so enormous to really take care of the animals, take care of the housing, and feeding and cleaning, all the husbandry aspects. So I feel honored actually to be able to do that, to give of my time to help these wonderful people and these animals that I never knew I could love a rhino, but I love a rhino.
When we work with our volunteers, we want to make sure that they're comfortable with the animals they're working with, but the majority of our education volunteers are going to be working with the public. We want to make sure that they are comfortable talking to people of all ages and understand the best ways to communicate with them and keep them interested about the animals and the topics that we have to discuss.
Yes, when I show up in the morning, a lot of times food has been delivered from commissary. All the food is either frozen, like the meats and the fish, and all the vegetables are fresh. There's nothing out of boxes, nothing out of cans. So I'll sit here and get food like this, which is, you know, for a fox. Very well balanced. There's fruit, vegetables, meat, a little mouse. Raccoons get the same food, and otters get 3 different kinds of fish. They get meatball, they get a little something sweet for them, and all the animals get mineral powder on their food. Otters get some cod liver oil, and they also get some vitamin E, because when food or like fish is frozen, it loses all its nutrients. This food that I have here, we have 2 big tortoises upstairs. They'll get fed, you know, each one of those. This is for the bird overload. When you feed the otters, we cut the tails and the heads off, and this is perfect for the wild birds that are hanging out in the lagoon. This is fresh meat that the bobcats will get, because the bobcats love their snacks. And this here is a Nutria diet. They get fed twice a week. There's biscuits in here, which is good for them, and then a variety of fruit and vegetables. Ironically, when the otters know they're going to be fed, I just have to call at them. They'll come running for their food. They know my voice. They know that it's snack time. And I think now what I'm going to do is go out and go start my snacks. It's funny, when we moved here in '89, I always loved the Audubon Zoo. We were here as we had membership. We would come almost every week. And then I learned that, hey, I can be a volunteer at this area. So, you know, did that. And actually, my profession was nursing. And I actually, you know, like the American way, people are always on diets. So being in the kitchen, I just make sure that the animals have a well-balanced diet.
Volunteering is one of those things that when you find the right place, find the match that's best for you, it really is a wonderful way to give back. And so, you know, here at our zoo, it's a little bit different than a lot of volunteer opportunities, and it really gets such a wonderful connection for people who are looking to work with animals and then spread the message of, you know, what's so great about animals and what we can do to conserve the animals and working with endangered species. So not only do volunteers get the opportunity to work with the animals, but they're also learning more about it, and then they're able to spread the message to their friends and family as well.
Actually, Audubon has an extensive training for their volunteers. It's a 40-hour class spread out over 10 weeks. And then after you've done all this, you can pretty much pick and choose the area that suits you. What better place than the swamp that has alligators and snakes and bobcats, and you know, they have everything here at the swamp. You get it's the best of the whole world at the zoo.
So our volunteers, after their training, we basically have them come in once a week. So they usually do a 3 to 4 hour shift depending on where they work, and they come weekly throughout the school year for the kids as well as the adults.
I stay here because it's a conscience thing for me. Mankind sort of blew it when it came to taking over the environment, and now we have to do the best we can to make up for it. That's why zoos are so critically important, because we're taking care of animals that children might not otherwise get to know. And our children are the only ones who are going to safeguard our future. So we have to introduce them to all of the animals that we can, that exist. And Audubon Zoo actually has incredible training programs for kids and lots of really fun things to get the kids to know and appreciate the environment and animals. So that's why I really love volunteering here. And as I said, it's a humble thing. It's just really cleaning and, you know, hosing and whatever, and I love it. my goodness, you came. You came. Good boy. Good boy, you came. I'm so proud of you. That's our boy. That's Saba. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it.
So technology is a tool for so many things, right? It's a tool for you to watch television, to hear music, but it's also a tool for community engagement and social justice. And so it really depends on how you're using it. For us, data and technology are critical pieces in understanding our communities and how they work. Understanding data and measuring how communities are connected to each other, whether people spend time as families talking about government, about politics and other issues, whether people do favors for neighbors, whether they volunteer for neighbors, whether they vote, and how often. All of those things are pieces of information that data, if we collect that information, in America we do, and around the world if it gets collected, tells a story, paints a picture of how strong a community is. So the challenge is, on the one hand, we have the data, right? But that's just numbers. And so how do you present that data? And what we found in America is that there are a lot of very creative young people who are creating infographics, visualizations of data, who are creating apps, applications for cell phones, who are creating websites where the data can be easily understood and accessed. And those two things, understanding the data and being able to access it, are critical. So the Civic Data Challenge is meant to address this need, right? The need for technology to interpret data and make it accessible to the average person. We found a number of years ago that as much as we are involved in the data and like to share it, we're not technologists. We're not the graphic designers. I wish I was. But there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm and creativity out there. And so what we said was to people around the country, we challenge you to come up with ways to interpret and share this data, and we will recognize and reward you with a little bit of money, not a lot, a little bit of money, but mostly with recognition. And we've had some amazing people step forward to offer their ideas last year and this year. And so we're very excited by that.
I think if I have anything to share with the people of Palestine about being involved in volunteering, is that it's never too late to start, and it's never too early to get involved. So often we can feel like if we're young, that it's maybe someone who's in another position has a better role. But when we see people get involved, oftentimes it's just simply using our hands and our heart. It doesn't take a lot of expertise. It doesn't take specialization. It really is a ministry of presence. It's really just being present and being willing to help. So often, if we apply all of our hands together to a job, it's so much easier than if we try to do it on our own.
You know, if you've never done this before, if you've never given your time or volunteered or helped somebody out, then you're really missing out. You really don't understand or really know what life is, because life is about that.
There's a phrase in America that we use a lot. It's probably a phrase in Palestine as well, that the children are the future. And of course that's true, but the future is also now. And young people are changing the world in very unpredictable and exciting ways. Sometimes also, scary ways, because we don't know what the future is going to be, but mostly in constructive ways. And I think that asking youth to step up, to use their creativity, their understanding of applications, their understanding of websites to contribute to the greater good is a challenge that the youth, we have found, accept. And they're happy to be asked. Oftentimes, we just don't ask them, right? We don't ask young people to do something constructive, and we don't give them the tools. So we would love to see a civic data challenge or something like it in Palestine.
You know, there's an African proverb, and it says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that would be the advice I would give to those folks in Palestine.